There comes a time in life when the way you see the world begins to shift. The things that once seemed urgent no longer feel important. And the people who used to be at the center of your life sometimes start to fade into the background. At first, it might feel strange, realizing that you no longer crave constant company, that small talk feels exhausting, or that certain relationships no longer bring the joy they once did. But with time, it becomes clear that stepping back from the noise, from the expectations of others, is not about loneliness or bitterness. It is about peace. Something happens when you reach a certain age. You stop feeling the need to explain yourself. You no longer have the patience for drama, for shallow conversations, for relationships that take more than they give. You begin to understand that time is the most precious thing you have, and wasting it on people who drain your energy is no longer an option. The truth is, you start avoiding people. Not all people, but the ones who bring stress, negativity, or unnecessary complication into your life. And instead of feeling guilty about it, you begin to embrace the quiet, the solitude, the freedom of choosing who is truly worth your time. One of the biggest reasons for stepping back is the realization that not everyone deserves access to your energy. In younger years, it felt necessary to keep up with friendships, to stay involved in social circles, to always be available. But after 65, there is no obligation to maintain relationships that no longer feel right. Some people only reach out when they need something. Others thrive on gossip, negativity, or complaining about things they never intend to change. Spending time with them leaves you feeling drained rather than uplifted. It becomes clear that life is too short to surround yourself with people who do not bring joy, kindness, or genuine connection. There is also the understanding that solitude is not the same as loneliness. Many people assume that avoiding others means withdrawing from the world, but in reality, it is about choosing quality over quantity. It is about recognizing that peace often comes in the quiet moments, reading a book without interruption, taking a walk, and actually hearing the birds, sitting in your own home without the distraction of meaningless chatter. There is a special kind of contentment in knowing that you do not need to be constantly surrounded by people to feel fulfilled. You have learned to enjoy your own company, to be comfortable with silence, to find happiness in the simple moments that once went unnoticed. Another reason for stepping back is that life has already been filled with obligations. For years, there were responsibilities, raising children, working long hours, taking care of others, meeting expectations. Now, there's finally the freedom to say no. No to events that feel like an obligation rather than a joy. No to conversations that feel like a performance rather than a genuine connection. No to relationships that require too much effort for too little return. After a lifetime of putting others first, there is finally room to prioritize personal happiness, to make choices based on what feels right rather than what is expected. With age comes clarity about who is truly there for you and who is only present when it is convenient for them. Time reveals everything. Some friendships that once seemed strong fade when there is nothing left to gain. Some family members who claim to care disappear when they are not in need. And instead of chasing after those who no longer make an effort, it becomes easier to let them go. The people who matter will always make time. They will not need reminders. They will not only appear when they want something, and they will not drain your energy with endless complaints and negativity. Those are the relationships worth keeping, and they are often far fewer than expected. There is also a certain exhaustion that comes with years of experience. It becomes tiring to listen to the same arguments, the same complaints, the same endless cycles of drama that people create for themselves. The need to engage, to respond, to participate in the emotional weight of others' problems starts to feel unnecessary. Instead, there's a growing appreciation for stillness, for a simple and uncomplicated life. Conversations that once seemed interesting now feel exhausting. Social gatherings that used to be fun now seem like more effort than they are worth. And rather than forcing interactions out of obligation, there is a quiet satisfaction in choosing to spend time alone. Stepping back from people also means stepping away from unnecessary conflict. The older you get, the less interest you have in proving yourself to anyone. There is no longer a need to argue over opinions, to convince others of your perspective, or to waste energy on debates that lead nowhere. People will believe what they want to believe, and that is their choice. It is no longer necessary to engage in conversations that feel like battles or to defend personal choices to those who will never understand them. The desire to be right, to be understood, to be accepted by everyone fades, replaced by the simple desire for peace. Avoiding people does not mean avoiding life. In fact, it often means living life more fully, without the distractions of meaningless conversations, empty relationships, and unnecessary obligations. There is more time for the things that truly matter. More time to pursue passions that were put on hold for years. More time to appreciate the beauty of a quiet morning, a peaceful evening, a day without interruption. More time to invest in the relationships that bring warmth and joy rather than stress and frustration. At 65, avoiding people is not about isolation. It is about choosing peace. It is about recognizing that life is too short to waste on the wrong people. It is about embracing the freedom that comes with age, the ability to make choices based on what feels right rather than what is expected. And most of all, it is about finally allowing yourself to live on your own terms, free from the weight of unnecessary relationships, conversations, and obligations. There is a quiet power in choosing solitude over stress, in choosing peace over performance, and in finally, fully, embracing the life you truly want to live. One of the greatest gifts of growing older is the ability to set boundaries without guilt. For most of life, there is an expectation to be available, to show up, to engage in social obligations, even when they feel exhausting. But after 65, there is a shift, a realization that saying no does not need an explanation. It becomes clear that protecting your energy is more important than pleasing others. If a conversation drains you, if an event feels more like a chore than an enjoyment, if a person's presence brings more stress than peace, there is no longer a reason to endure it. The freedom to step away from what no longer serves you is a right that is finally embraced, and with it comes a deep sense of relief. There is something incredibly refreshing about no longer feeling the need to explain yourself. In younger years, there was always pressure to justify choices, why you were too tired to go out, why you needed time alone, why you didn't want to participate in certain conversations. But now, there is no need for explanations. If something does not feel right, if a social situation is more trouble than it's worth, walking away is enough. There is no obligation to fill the silence with excuses or to soften decisions for the comfort of others. Choosing peace over participation is no longer something to feel guilty about. It is something to celebrate. This shift in priorities also leads to a deeper appreciation for time. When younger, time seemed endless. There was always another opportunity, another event, another chance to see someone. But at this stage of life, every moment is more valuable. There is no desire to waste time on conversations that lead nowhere, on relationships that are one-sided, on events that feel meaningless. Instead, time is reserved for the things and people that truly matter. If a gathering does not bring joy, if a person's presence does not feel good, if an activity feels more like an obligation than a pleasure, then it is simply not worth it. There is a powerful sense of control in knowing that time is no longer being given away carelessly. It is being spent wisely on the things that bring happiness and fulfillment. One of the biggest surprises that comes with stepping away from unnecessary social interactions is the realization of how little is actually missed. In the past, there may have been a fear of missing out, a feeling that declining invitations or avoiding certain relationships would lead to regret. But with distance comes clarity, and many people discover that the gatherings, the conversations, the relationships they once forced themselves into were not as essential as they once seemed. Instead, they find a newfound joy in the quiet, in the freedom to wake up and decide how to spend the day without obligation. Another unexpected benefit is the ability to truly enjoy the relationships that remain. When the noise of unnecessary social interactions fades, The people who truly matter become even more important. The friendships that are built on mutual respect, on genuine connection, on shared understanding. Those relationships thrive when they are no longer diluted by interactions that feel forced. Time spent with these people becomes richer, more meaningful, because it is chosen, not required. A heartfelt conversation with a true friend is far more valuable than 10 meaningless exchanges with acquaintances. A quiet dinner with someone who truly listens is more fulfilling than a loud gathering filled with shallow conversations. There is also something profoundly peaceful about no longer feeling the need to prove anything to anyone. When younger, there was always a desire to be understood, to be accepted, to make sure others saw things the way you did. But with time, that need fades. People will believe what they want to believe, and there is no longer a need to correct them, to argue, or to make them see things differently. There is peace in letting go of the need to be right, in allowing others to have their own opinions while standing firm in your own. There is no longer a need to seek validation from others because confidence comes from within, not from external approval. This shift also brings a greater appreciation for solitude. In a world that constantly pushes socialization, being alone is often misunderstood. Many people assume that solitude is the same as loneliness, but in reality, it is the opposite. Solitude is a choice, a luxury, a way to recharge and find clarity. It is the freedom to wake up without obligations, to enjoy hobbies without distraction, to sit in silence and truly hear your own thoughts. It is the ability to exist without performance, without having to entertain or please anyone else. Many seniors find that the more time they spend alone, the more they appreciate their own company. They no longer feel the need to surround themselves with people just for the sake of it. Instead, they find fulfillment in their own routines, their own spaces, their own lives. Choosing to step away from people does not mean closing the door on the world. It means opening the door to a life that is more peaceful, more intentional, and more fulfilling. It means prioritizing well-being over obligation, happiness over appearances, and quality over quantity. It means recognizing that not all relationships are meant to last forever, that not all conversations are worth having, and that not all social situations deserve your time. It means embracing the beauty of a life lived on your own terms, free from unnecessary burdens, free from forced interactions, free from anything that does not bring joy. There is a quiet strength in choosing solitude when it feels right. There is wisdom in knowing when to walk away from what no longer serves you. There is power in setting boundaries, in protecting your peace, in deciding how and with whom to spend your time. At 65, life is no longer about pleasing others. It is about finding joy in the moments that truly matter. And sometimes, the best way to do that is by stepping back, embracing the silence, and simply enjoying the peace that comes with choosing yourself. One of the most liberating realizations that comes with age is that you no longer need to explain yourself. There is no obligation to justify why you prefer solitude, why you no longer tolerate certain relationships, or why you choose to step away from social expectations that no longer serve you. The older you get, the more you understand that life is too short for unnecessary stress, forced conversations, or interactions that drain your energy. Choosing to avoid certain people is not about bitterness or isolation. It is about self-respect, about protecting the time and peace you have earned through a lifetime of experience. There is a deep kind of freedom in no longer feeling the need to be available for everyone. So much of life was spent meeting obligations, fulfilling responsibilities, and making sure others were comfortable. But now, there is the ability to decide how each day is spent. Waking up with no obligations to engage in pointless conversations, to entertain people who do not add value to life, or to force interactions just to avoid hurting feelings is one of the greatest gifts of this stage in life. What once felt like social necessities now seem unnecessary, and with that realization comes a sense of peace. One of the biggest fears people have when they begin to step back from social obligations is that they will feel lonely. But the truth is, loneliness does not come from spending time alone. It comes from spending time with the wrong people. It comes from forcing conversations that feel empty, from maintaining relationships that take more than they give, from being in a room full of people and still feeling unseen. The moment you let go of those relationships, the moment you stop chasing connections that do not bring you joy, you realize that solitude is not something to fear. It is something to embrace. Many people spend their entire lives worrying about what others think, about whether they are being judged for their choices, about whether they are doing what is expected of them. But by the time you reach this stage of life, you begin to understand that the opinions of others do not matter. What matters is whether you feel at peace, whether you wake up without regret, whether you have created a life that feels good to you. The need for validation fades, and with it, the pressure to engage in relationships or social expectations that do not align with your happiness. Some may not understand why you choose to step back from certain relationships, or why you no longer feel the need to constantly socialize. But that is their problem, not yours. People who truly care about you will respect your choices, will appreciate the moments you do choose to share, and will understand that stepping back is not an act of rejection. It is an act of self-care. Those who take it personally, who become offended by your decision to prioritize peace over obligation, were likely never the right people to keep close in the first place. There is also an undeniable sense of clarity that comes from removing unnecessary social obligations. Without the distractions of meaningless interactions, there is more time to reflect, to appreciate the simple things, to reconnect with personal passions that may have been forgotten. Whether it is reading a book without interruption, gardening in quiet peace, or simply enjoying the stillness of an early morning, there is beauty in a life that is lived with intention. Instead of filling time with activities that do not bring joy, every moment becomes more meaningful, more deliberate, more fulfilling. One of the greatest lessons that comes with age is that true happiness is not found in the number of people around you. It is found in the quality of the relationships you choose to keep. Some people will stay with you for a lifetime, while others were only meant to be part of your journey for a season. Letting go of those who no longer align with your life is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation. It is recognizing that peace is more valuable than social approval, that time is too precious to waste on interactions that do not bring joy, and that choosing solitude is not a sign of loneliness, but a sign of wisdom. Avoiding people now does not mean avoiding life. It means choosing to live it fully, without the weight of unnecessary expectations. It means waking up each day with the freedom to decide how your time will be spent, who you will allow into your space, and what truly matters. It means finally putting yourself first after years of prioritizing everyone else. There is a deep and lasting joy in that kind of freedom, a sense of peace that cannot be found in forced interactions or empty conversations. At 65, life is not about pleasing others. It is about embracing what brings happiness, about surrounding yourself with those who truly matter, and about finding comfort in your own company. It is about letting go of obligations that feel heavy, of relationships that no longer fit, of anything that does not contribute to your well-being. It is about knowing that solitude is not something to fear. It is something to celebrate. And in that quiet, in that space where you are no longer bound by the expectations of others, you will find a kind of peace that is more valuable than anything else.